Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and some quick updates. You understand that obviously the video I did before, my mum's passed away now. Funeral is on Monday and I'm not allowed to stay at the house and they won't change the tenancy over to me because when my mum had my dad on the tenancy, she had him removed. They classed that as the changes she had, so I unfortunately can't hand it down to me. So I'm going to become homeless. And I've got to move out, and I've only got 4 weeks, which is roughly 4 weeks, adds up till Tuesday. But they're not giving me officially written notice yet, so I feel I can stay till they give me written notice. But obviously we're preparing, getting stuff moved now, so when the day happens, I don't have to panic on the last day. So this is much where I've been living since, well, it's at home, so we moved in when I was about 13, 14 roughly, and it's been a family home since then for many years. And now it's sort of bye-bye too. So all the kitchen's been stripped out. I've just had my stepbrother or my brother taking the washing machine and tumble dryer for him. Thank you, Guy. Thank you. Kitchen's all been sorted out. It's just sort of bare essentials. Most of all this is going to go to the charity shop because it's all missed bits and pieces. It's all my mum's sort of cups and she had over the years. You can see things taken off the wall, the different changes in colour. That's what originally kitchen colour looked like. That's what it is now, but yeah. So very bare. And I've been left with bare essentials for tea and coffee. Well, I'm here until Tuesday. Might be a bit longer, but I definitely have to go anyway. So, and at the moment I've got a temporary internet cable here going on, which is connected to a PC that I'm sort of finishing off for a friend. So that's got to go tomorrow back to their office. And okay, so look at the different colours on the wall. Look, this is like years of grime and dirt. And mum's been very elderly over the years, so she's not able to paint over the years, keeping it all up to clean. But you don't realise until you take this down how much difference in colour the walls are. I don't really realise. Front room, so this is the front room, but mum also slept here, so that's a bed, so it's been a sort of bedroom and front room for her. So that's going, chairs going, that's the chair mum always watched telly and chilled out in, fallen asleep many times in the chair as well. And the cat's always been asleep with her, chilled out there, got some photographs but he's chilled out with her on there. And he's obviously started noticing she's gone, so he's been hogging that chair non-stop. But he goes tomorrow to where I'll be sofa surfing, so hopefully he'll get on with the cats there as well, so fingers crossed on that one as well. But yeah, it's very cool in here. Teddy's going tomorrow, all that's been taken. My broadband kit down there, BT Infinity Hub. I've got also another hub down here which powers up the shed and the garage where the servers sit. I've got here as well. Lots of stuff to do upstairs anyway. So on the new location, I've got man cave installed, big shed. That's going to be my new area for builds and PC stuff and filming and things like that. And I've just got in contact with Virgin Media in the UK. They're going to be fitting me a business fibre optic line for the man cave. It's going to be 350 meg download with a guaranteed 20 meg upload. Contention ratio is going to be small. The ping rate of speed is going to be small because they designed their fibre optic line for gamers as well. Because it's a business line, it's going to be much more faster than residential line as well. And that's going to be like really good. I've been on Virgin Media broadband before when I had my flat, and it was super fast, really quick. So I should be able to do much more videos, upload them quicker as well. Do a lot of nice live stream videos as well with that nice crisp proper stream without all this thing keeps going poor all the time. We install some wireless stuff solution, new wireless boxes. Got tons of reviews to do because a lot of companies have been sending me lots of new gear to test and try out on the channel because of now all this move and mum's passed away, funerals on Monday, not able to create any videos. It's been very much like up in the air at the moment with getting things sorted out. So I've got 2 weeks time a guy creating and building the base for the shed to go on, and a couple of weeks after that the shed will be installed, and then we're going to do some videos, time-lapse videos of all the construction site so you guys can follow it. And I'll be doing all the cabling, wiring out, and things like that as well. So we're going to have fibre Virgin Media broadband installed. It's going to be installed into a cupboard under the stairs at the location. And then we're going to run some fibre from there to the main shed itself. So we can always, so the speed, it will be super speed and fast at the shed itself. So we always get the decent speed as such. And I'll show you how to all the install. We'll show you how to patch, doing patch panel and connections. So you get to follow everything. So going to be lots of nice videos on that as well. So people that I've been doing remote support with on the channel, I will get back to you and I will sort that out as well, because I'm going to be moving my main gear on Monday. So I'll be doing stuff remotely the next couple of days still to catch up with stuff that I've missed the last few weeks. And then my stuff will be moved probably on Tuesday. Then I can start then editing and doing remote support and finish those. The guy in California, we can get that exchange finishing built off with. So I've not forgotten about that, and we can then get the exchange moved over, get you guys on that as well, and then we can then start finishing it all off, and then go from there really. So yeah, loads of stuff. So did someone comment, because I'm finding it hard to get the comments to stay up. There we go. So we've got Dale. Hi, my condonist. Oh, thank you, mate. Will you be installing? God, it's in the way. Will you be installing CCTV at the shed? Yes, I actually did think about it today. That's a good thing. There's some good CCTV packages that Maplins do. I tend to be visiting my Maplins store quite a bit actually. I got a little TV streaming box from them, which works really well. So that's going to be installed. So I'm going to install my 4K screen in there so I can watch TV. It's going to be a bit like a little man cave stroke, little flat finish with it. So yes, I got this nice CCTV kit. Comes with some nice infrared cameras. And I was thinking because the shed's at the bottom of the garden, I'm going to put a bell buzzer. So you got buzzer 1 on the front door that they can ring, which then rings the house. So anybody that's home can answer it. Then I'm gonna put a sticker label on it saying, if they get no answer from this button, press button 2, which will then be a buzzer in my shed. And I'll have a remote camera on the front door so I can see who they are as well, because obviously if I get a lot of packages delivered, I can see them approaching. I'm going to put a camera in the back garden so I can see who's in the back garden, even though I've got a couple of windows to look out of anyway, but it's always good to have that. And I'm going to have a couple of cameras in the shed, because there's going to be a lot of equipment in there. Double skin in the walls, so nice thick insulation. So during the winter time, it'll be lovely and toasty and warm in there to work with. And in the summertime, we can keep it nice and cool as well. I'm having proper electrics put in, so proper plug sockets and stuff, all going to be installed as well. Yeah, so and then I can see everything. So I can see out the front doors, I can see in the house, I can see in the back garden, I can then monitor the shed as well. And that can be accessible from the house as well as the shed. So I'll tell you what gear I purchase and buy, what I go for it, whether we do any mods to upgrade it, because you know what the CCTV equipment they come with standard hard drives. We'll upgrade those so we can stick some more footage on it. But I've got 2 really big powerful servers now that I built. It's got like 6 terabytes of storage. So I might actually increase the storage a little bit for them and allow the cameras directly recording to them instead. So we'll see how that goes. I recommend you get cameras for a very responsible price. I'll look into that actually, that's a good idea. Comment below equipment you think's good. It might be ideal to help me out, and I can then have a look at it. If it's decent, I can order it in, do a product review, install it, test it, and see how it goes. That'd be interesting actually. I want you guys to help me out a bit more now, saying what stuff are you interested in looking at, so I know what from now to start planning ahead now, what to review, what to go through, what to test, things like that. So everything's helpful from you guys. I mean, without you guys watching, the channel wouldn't be what it is today. So it's getting good. So we get some more stuff on there. Switches, wireless, and cameras. Yeah. So I've got 2 48 port 10100 gigabit switches, which I'd probably still neutralise them, but they're a little bit old. So I might look at maybe once I've got all the sheds together, I might then start looking at upgrading my switches to like 10 gigabit Ethernet, because that's the sort of going rate now. So that get my speed up. That'd be interesting, because I know I've got two of my kids we're moving to, they want ultra fast connections and stuff as well. So we'll probably use them as a dummy to test out all the new gear, how fast they can talk to the switches and servers, how fast their internet speeds are as well, things like that. Central controller. Yeah, I mean a lot of the IP cameras now. I mean on the Unraid kit I'm using, they have a Docker you can download, which goes into the Docker, which runs CCTV stuff. And because it's RAID anyway, it can write to it quite nicely. So we can try all that out. We can try a central CCTV hub that's independent on its own, and we'll try it also through the Unraid stuff. Because I've really fitted my Unraid with some really serious CPU power and RAM in there, and I'm not, because it's using as a RAID drive, it's not really neutralizing all the power of what's on the motherboard. So we might actually look at doing some VM stuff in there for CCTV stuff as well. It'd be quite awesome. Because at the moment I've got one built, which is the master, which I write and save files directly to all the time. I have a second one built, and I've got a piece of software that's called Sync that runs on both of those. So everything I do on here is moved over to this box over here, and it synchronizes. So if something goes wrong with this box, I just map my drives to this box and back up and running again. It's really good. So as soon as I say something, within seconds, it reappears over here instantly. So it's quite good. So I'll show you more details how that's done using the sync software, which is really good. Then I've got a small NAS box that sits off the side. That runs sync. What it does, it takes data from this master box and backs it directly onto the NAS box itself as like an archiving system. But what I want to do is I want this box to be the master where I do all the writing, reading, copying to. I want it synchronizing to the folders on this one so it's identical. And then I'm going to have maybe an archiving folder on here. So when I decide that I want to move stuff along here into the archive, which is a long-term storage, that gets synced to the little NAS box for long-term storage. But eventually I'll build that NAS box into a full-fledged PC and really stick some serious storage space in it for real long-term stuff. And then we can then have it all synchronizing. So it goes from here, syncs to here, backs up onto the NAS unit a bit later on. So yeah, so lots of ideas on that I need to do. Sounds like a can't read off that. DFSR, but it's probably actually works. Yeah, I played with a lot of CCTV equipment in the past because when I was in IT, I looked after. I don't know if you guys are in the UK, but if you are in the UK, you'll probably know more the place. The first airport in the UK was built in Croydon. It went through both World War Wars, and it's called Airport House. I got a contract there to look after the airport because it became a business centre. Many years later, it becomes a business centre. And I did all the cabling there, did all the fibre optic, did all the network cabling there. I've got a team of people in to help me as well because it's a really big place. We installed state-of-the-art CCTV equipment as well because their CCTV was on its last legs. It was actually failing, cameras weren't working, and I slowly then implemented a new system, new cameras, replacing old cameras, and we also put the old cameras back online as well, working through, slowly changing them as well. So I wish I started vlogging or YouTubing this many years ago because so much stuff I held with me. And I had we built into a data center there as well. So we had like loads and loads of servers. We had customers coming in. We even rented servers to the local businesses that were actually based there as well. And there was so much kit went in. I was buying kit every week. I was replacing kit every year as well because I had a whole rack of servers that had a hosting environment. I had loads of stuff to play with, Cisco routers, all that sort of stuff. I'm from the UK, 16 years old, doing my first install in the coming weeks. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so I really wish I vlogged them because I could have vlogged the actual, it's a massive room basically. It was, in theory, it was like 6 offices opened out into a great big one room. It was enough to hold at least 100 rack cabinets in there. And I got all the floor raised up, I had all the walls redone. They even had massive windows all along those. We sealed those off, so we made it in a solid room, so no sun would come in, causing heating issues as well. And I had a really big aircon unit fitted to keep that room like ultra cool. We even had all phase power installed as well, so it was all dedicated power to the racks as well. I mean, there's loads of stuff I did, really brought up to scratch. I wish I videoed all of it. There was even they had old kits there that was like the telephone system used to take a whole rack space up, or 2 racks it took up, with all its switches and all its analog stuff as well. That eventually fitted down into a 10U rack. It all went into it, so we brought it down. It's all IP based as well, and it was really hard work because there was tons of cabling we had to pull out. There was cables we had to pull back as well. So every time we changed people over to the new system, which is on VoIP, it was VoIP from there to the customers. So from the main switch, which used Mitel, that was VoIP from there to the customer's desk, and then from the Mitel went out through normal standard phone lines. The BT was trying to get me to implement another lease line to just have it dedicated for VoIP, but I didn't like the idea of that, because if the internet went down, which it did quite a few times at Airport House, that means all the phone system would be off. So we had more downtime on the lease line for the internet, quite a lot, even though they did bring it back really quickly as well. But phone system, there's no issues. May have a line go down, but because we had over 200 phone lines coming into the Mitel, so it didn't actually show any issues, because it would just ignore a faulty line. You might someone get couldn't get the dial tone out, hang up, try again. It changed the lines over, so it wasn't really noticeable. But so much wiring, cabling on the old system was still pulled back. So when I actually left the contract, there was still very much a lot of analog still left there. There was the old analog patch panel on the wall still that had to be moved. So I don't know whether the guy who took over did it, or I don't know. But there was so much I could have done on video wise there. There's so much as lots of old cabling. Even Ethernet cable, I went back years all in the ceiling. When we started recabling all new Cat 6, Cat 5 cable, Cat 5e cable, when we was up in the ceiling panels, was putting down tons of old cable that literally was cut back, shoved up there. Because the configuration kept changing all the time. That's all I was doing, cutting the old cables, throwing up in the ceiling, laying new cables in, but not putting anything back. We pulled tons and tons of cable out. We had one ceiling tile we moved, and it was literally, must have been like 500-600 cables in a bundle that just fell down on us. We cut that back, we pulled it back. We must have pulled back miles and miles of cable. We also laid miles and miles of cable, and we laid a lot of fibre optic cable in there as well. And our lease line was fibre optic as well. We laid in. E.g., each customer their own virtual server. How did you rent the servers out? Yes, it's very different things. We had different people, different requests. We had one customer that had their own servers, so we would encourage them to move it into the new comms room we built. We call it a comms room. I call it a data center room. People call it a comms room. So we encouraged them to rent space. So we sold space per rack or per use. Most of the customers already had their own racks in their own rooms. So we said, look, get it out, put it into our comms room. We'll charge you an extra fee for space and the power usage on it as well. Because a lot of people were running their own servers within their offices, but we're finding they're all drawing a lot more power. So in theory, the electricity bill for Airport House was massive, because people didn't have a cap limit on how much electricity they could pull, because they had a rental agreement in place, nothing covered for like electricity. So they could like eat as much as they can. By having this comm room built, we encouraged them to put it out of their rooms, because A was give them an air-conditioned room that keeps their servers lovely and cool, and it was secure and tight, so we had dongle access in and out of the room as well, and it was on proper power. So that way we could A, rent them the space, A, rent them the power usage, then our power usage would used to be dropped down, knowing that the ones we use in the comms room was being paid for. So that's how we did it. And customers that wanted to upgrade our old servers to new servers, we used to then do it with virtual servers. So our main goal was like to sort of say, well, instead of getting a physical server, we'll rent you virtual servers, we'll build them We're implementing it, customise it. And most of the time we actually won the IT contracts for them to look after it for them as well at the same time. So that was quite nice and easy. So we had a lot of people coming out, taking our servers. So we'll buy the servers in, purchase them ourselves, which we bought, they were like a couple of grand each. So we put like loads of shit in it so we can run more than just 5 or 6 servers per server. We can run lots of virtual servers. And that's what we did. We had one client, we took all their servers offline and replaced them with all virtual servers with us. So they kept, while they were on our own system. So the other thing as well, doing that, they couldn't decide later to say, oh, we don't want to rent from you anymore, because they would have to move the virtual server. And because we wouldn't give them access directly to the hardware, because we in theory was contracted to maintain it, they would have to then buy new servers, get an IT guy, then to move the virtual environment, or maybe just rebuild a new system to move it over to. It was too complicated, so they just carried renting from us, and yeah, that's how that worked. Yeah, because what we're doing in each room, in each, because at the moment the internet they had was really poor, so we improved that massively. So I installed a gigabit lease line, and we was tied to about 500 gigs, so 500 megs of internet bandwidth. And then I used that came into a really, well, first we had a router. It kept crashing, kept rebooting. So we said we need a router that supports 16 ports with gigabits per port as well. So if we ever upgraded from the 500 meg to a gig, the actual router would work, because I didn't see the point installing a smaller box, which I originally did. And if we decided to upgrade the bandwidth, we would then have to upgrade the router at the same time. But we did eventually upgrade the bandwidth. They did actually change the router to a 16 gigabit port router. Then that allowed us to bandwidth throttle each of the ports individually. So I had one port going to all our own internal systems, which we left as full open for a gigabit. The other ports will go on to managed switches, which we could then manage each port bandwidth. So what we done was we patched those ports to a room. So in the rooms that we installed a rack cabinet up on their wall. We installed one switch for their own internal network, and that's all that switch went to, was only in that room only. So we patched down and kitted the room out with ports for them, part of our infrastructure. We had a second switch in the cabinet which dealt with our VoIP, which is our phone system. That was on a separate cable running back to the comms room. Then we put a small router, those cheap sort of BT routers. It was a cheap, I think it's Netgear routers we're using, and that would have a cable coming from the comms room patched into that. That router would then be patched into their switch, and on our switch level end, we would segment the bandwidth so that we could say they can have 20 meg down, and they can have a meg up or 2 meg up, depending on what they wanted. So we gave them variation in prices and costs to say, if you want more upload speed, you can pay more. If you wanted a small download speed but a very high download speed, we could change it around and customize it. So we gave them broadband packages that BT were offering out there at slightly cheaper prices. We did contention ratios that are more like 1 to 1, 1 to 5, 1 to 10 as well. So we gave them all those options so they could choose what type of speed they wanted, which worked really well. And then we used the switch to bandwidth throttle those ports to their own internal box. So it's literally like them having their own broadband, and it worked really well. They loved it. Their speeds were fast. It worked really well, and it was great. So when they decided to say we want a bit more bandwidth, so we want to go from 20 meg to 40 meg or 40 meg to 80 meg, it was easy, just go onto the switch, configure the port for them quickly, make the payment change, and bang, they're upgraded. And we could also downgrade them as well. So they wanted a faster line for a particular 6 months, and then decided to downgrade it a while. Especially some of them were like media companies. If they had a job to get out really quickly, we could literally just change the port speed off the fly. So we could say, we even did deals to sort of say, for an X price you pay, we can upload you over 24 hours at this speed rate. Then after that, we'll drop it down to your normal speed. So we had them asking for those sort of things. So we had quite a lot of different range. We was making loads of money on the internet side, and we also made mega money on the phone side, because I got a BT package from BT through our ICN lines, which is part of the MyCell system, where that we had an unlimited phone package deal. So we had over, I think we had like over 200 phone lines. Each phone line had 500 minutes to any mobile network for free, so long as we didn't go over the 500 minutes. That's per line. And we also had, I can't remember what the deal was. It was something like 5,000 minutes for normal national and international calls. That was quite high rated. So we pay a fixed fee per month for line rental, for the lines, package rental, for the cost for that unlimited calls, they call it. It's called unlimited calls from BT, but it wasn't really. It was tied to 5,000 minutes national and international calls, 500 minutes for mobiles per line as well. But because all the people using in the business centre using it, we didn't ever go over the mobile minutes. We never ever go over the phone line minutes. But we made massive amount of money on profit on the phones because we still charged like a slightly different rate to BT. So it was still cheaper on our phone systems. So because a lot of people did have their own phone systems, but they eventually brought it all over to us, and we literally made, to be honest, they made a killing on it basically. I turned that around because when I first moved in, doing all the equipment there, they weren't making any money on the internet there. It was more or less taking what they cost, giving it to clients, making no profit at all. Well, I turned it around, so they went from zero profit to 90% profit, which is really cool. Yes, we did use VLANs. We VLANed on the switch, so no one could see each other. So if they decided to take their router out of the room and plug that directly to a PC, they would only see their own port. They wouldn't see anybody else on the LAN itself. So we used VLAN. So yes, all the switches had their own VLAN. Even this coming from the main physical lease line router, that was VLAN. Every port on there was VLAN as well. So no one could see each other. No rooms could see either or. Even if they scanned it, it wouldn't show up. So we used VLAN on that, which worked really well, which is really good. And the other good thing about VLAN, if a company started out growing and they couldn't get a room to expand out, and had to take another room the other side of the building, we could then VLAN the both rooms on the same VLAN forum. We can end up joining two rooms from one side of the building to the other side of the building using the VLAN switch. So we would just change because well, in theory, because you have a lot of VLAN ports, so each room had its own dedicated VLAN ports. By telling the switch we want these two ports joined on the same VLAN, it allows us to join the offices together. Then they can still be on the same network, same broadband, and that worked really well. So VLANing was good. Very complicated to set up, but once it's set up, we had switches so we can export the config as a text file, and we can then reload that onto another switch. Especially if a switch went down, we could get another switch off the shelf, load that config onto it, plonk it back in, and power it back up again. That was really, really easy to do. Your content is very interesting. Thank you. How did you segment each user's offices? VLAN. Well, the way it works, let's say there was a cabinet on this wall here. We have two switches in there. One for the phone switch, which only went to our own network, and a second switch is for the room itself. So all the cables in the room will patch into that switch. They couldn't see anything. We had we had 4 upload ports that went back to the comms room. Port 1 was the phone, so that'll go straight into the phone switch. Port 2 was their internet, so that will go into a router in the cabinet that had their own IP address on it, and that will then connect to their switch normally, okay? And that was VLANed back to the comms room through a switch, which we then segmented the bandwidth. So everything was VLANed off, so they couldn't see nobody else's. If they took the router out and plugged it into the PC or something to analyse it, they wouldn't see nothing off of it apart from the internet directly itself. But without knowing what the IP addresses internally are, they couldn't even connect. So if you connected to that port directly, we'd never get nothing off of it. So it was very, very secure, because that's the thing I actually planned ahead for, making sure that no one could see each other on the internet side, and the internet did stay very much private as well. And because the other thing as well, on the admin side where I sat, my PC could see, I had multiple network cards in there, So my PC could see all the switches on its own VLANs, because we had a dedicated port for that, so we can do remote management, so that's separated from all the users. I could see all the routers, the internet routers that were supplied for each of the rooms, so I could go on their remote onto them and do all their firmware upgrades as well. So we maintained all that. So I would do that in the evening, because we kept to the same make routers, same make switches, so it made it much more simpler. And plus the switches had management software that were taught to a special port we made available for admin use only, so we can see them on our network, so we can roll out firmware upgrades in a great big rollout. So we can just say apply this firmware to all these switches, and I did it overnight, and that worked really well. That's really cool. So when you think of things like that, look at the managed switches. We don't want to spend a fortune on switches. We wanted to sort of use switches that are very much cheap and easy to replace, not all these really high-tech expensive switches. So it came to a point where one blew, buying them again, it wouldn't cost a fortune. So very much our switches were like a couple £100 each, that we used internally. The ones we used for bandwidth throttling were a bit more expensive, but they weren't thousands of pounds. So it helped us on that side to maintain. It's the last thing you do is spend thousands of pounds on switches, and you end up spending too much on in infrastructure rather than getting it back from the customer's point of view, for paying for it all. So I'm just going to go through the comments here. What do you use for phone system? The phone system was BT's Mitel. I still got it actually here. It's actually in the garage. So eventually when I get everything sorted out, I'll take over the Mitel switch. So it was Mitel switch. It was a 4U switch. Inferior, it's just a PC inside all these like multiple cards. It had a hard drive in there as well. And we had some really good software that would monitor traffic, so we could actually build a phone billing list per customer. So we can tie in the phone extension they had. That will generate all the calls that are coming in and out from the phone, and that will generate a bill for them showing all their calls they've made, received, and all that sort of stuff. And so it's a fully itemized billing system. That software was fantastic. We even had one customer asking for, they said we wanted a TV installed in our room so we can see all our phone extensions, how many incoming calls were coming in, how many were ignored, how long the response time between each call. And we found some software that run with Mitel that did all that as well, and that's absolutely a little bit expensive, but did well. The customer paid for the whole software licenses for it, because we said something not everybody's asking for. So if you want it, you pay for it, we'll install it and you can use it. And when other people started wanting to use it, then we'll rent it to them. So that's how we made it on that side. So yeah, Mitel was the phone system we used. That at the time, BT was just rolling out Mitel, and that was the best solution I thought, because I wanted to stay with proper analog lines, ICN lines for phones, so I know they're solid. I didn't want to change over to VoIP over the internet. It was too expensive as well. It would need another lease line. I didn't want to run it off the same lease line, because it means if the internet was down, that means everything was down, internet and phone. Hence why I wanted that separately. So if the internet went off, at least the phones were still working, because most of the customers were calling all the time. So that was more important than the internet was. So that's why we did it that way around. So it stayed a way that it wouldn't go offline. So what did you do? What did the routers in people's offices use as a default gateway? Well, basically you have one side, which would be like a 192.168, normally what you get when you buy a router at home. The WAN port interface will be an IP address we gave them, actually I programmed on them. So there will be like an internal one, started like 172.16. something, okay, because that gave us a massive scope. But if the customers wanted their own fixed IP addresses, because they was running something on their side, for instance, then we'll put a proper public internet IP address on it. That's how it worked, and that'll go straight through. And everything was done on the switch level and stuff. So I started to be honest, a lot of them I started actually physically putting a fixed IP address on them, because we became we supplied our own IP addresses. We bought a massive block of them that we could use, so that we can stick that on all our routers, so everyone had a fixed IP no matter what. So if anybody wanted it, it was there ready, so we didn't have to do a lot of changing around. So when I first started doing it, we started doing 192 addresses, and then I applied a fixed IP, because that's when we had a few given to us from the ISP. I think the ISP gave us 16. I said if you need any more of that, you have to then apply for your own IP addresses, which we did. And then eventually we ran our own DNS servers and eventually went for the whole hog of being an ISP. So yeah. So digital routers and people's office users get go away. So did one-on-one NAT to people's routers? No. Well, basically, the routers in the rooms. It's hard to explain it. The routers in the room would act just like if they was directly connected to a phone line for a broadband. So internally, they had a 192.168 address. They could use the firewall and ports if they wanted to open and closed. We would do that for them. The other side had a fixed IP address with our own IP address, which went directly to the internet. They didn't go anywhere else. So it was cabled from. So you had a WAN port and 4 internal ports for them to use. The WAN port will go from their switch directly back to a comms room on our own switch. That switch then had a direct connection to our router itself. And it's all done through that way. And the NATing and the routing on the main router itself were configured in a way that that's how they would work. So we had our provider, our bandwidth provider, do that for us because that was managed by them as well. So we just say this is how we want it to work. They configured it, so it worked, and that worked really well. So if they wanted full-blown IP addresses, they could have that as well. The only thing our switches did was the bandwidth throttling, turn it into like a broadband type scenario. So one-on-one NAT routers, yeah. So we're trying to keep the configuration simple and easy because if I end up leaving and someone took over, it was easy for them to pick up. Because we didn't want to implement. I could have gone the Cisco route, everything in Cisco, and have a Cisco engineer to come in and do all the configuration work for. Because obviously Cisco is a different language to everything else. They're quite complex. And at the time, it would have cost us £1,000 for a Cisco engineer to sit on site for a day going through all the conflict stuff. And the amount of work that would have been involved would have been at least a week's worth of work for configuring everything. Not only that, the cost of the Cisco routers were expensive. Cisco routers, switches, you weren't talking about a couple £100, you were talking about a few £1,000s per switches. Even the Mitel VoIP switches we had to install in the comms room were £5,000 a piece, so they weren't cheap because we had to run power over them as well. And then the switches we provided in their own comms cabinet were cheaper switches from Netgear, even those are still bloody expensive as well. So we're trying to keep a cost low, quality high, and configuration easy. So if I wasn't around, someone could easily pick a router up and reconfigure it. So it wasn't going to be complex. It's going to be too complicated. That means we'll have to hire in roles on site, other people, which costs lots of money. So people with offices routers would connect directly. Alright. So people's offices routers would connect. It's changing. Connect directly to managed switches, which VLAN them away, give them internet access. Yeah, roughly. Yeah. I'm gonna have to do I have to find out from the original the guy that I was talking to, if I can come back and explain it to him. I can do a video from there. It'd be quite cool. So on our first routers, the default gateway on the WAN port. The default gateway on. Okay. So the office route on the default gateway on the WAN port would be that of the switch. No. The switch didn't provide any Right, let's just do it. Right, you got router for the ISP, which is our lease line went into. That has 16 ports on it. So on there was no configurations on the switch because you would wherever you plugged into it would have an IP address. So that would be the public internet IP. Okay. Those ports will be connected to several different switches in the cabinet. So in the rack, we would have had one switch dealing with like 20 megabit connections. Switches below that would be different ones. Okay, because obviously we only had 24 port switches. So let's keep this really simple. So one port of the router plugged into a 24 port switch. There are all the ports of VLANs apart from 2 ports. They're on a different VLAN. Okay, one was remote management for our own network, and the other ports was where the main router plugs into. Now the 24 ports that plugged in back to each of the offices, again, it was a direct link, okay? So the traffic going through that port to the router, straight out the web, was completely live, okay? So there's no IP addressing on the switches themselves, apart from just VLANs. The only IP addresses on that router was me to connect to manage it, basically. Okay, which was an internal one connected to the management port we made available on using VLAN. Now the routers will have its own public IP address on the WAN ports. Okay, so in theory it'll just go straight out because it went through the switch to the router to go out on the internet. The switch managed the bandwidth throttling from the router internally to out on the web. So if that person's wanted 20 meg connection and only like 5 meg up, that's how we configured the bandwidth throttling on that port for them. So each port could be different. So one port could be, let's say, 40 meg, another port could be 20 meg, another port could be 5 meg if we wanted to. We could configure whatever speed we wanted on the ports. Now, the connection from the main router to the managed port for that switch would have been a full gig. So there's no bandwidth throttling, only on the port itself. So if we wanted another port on the switch to be a full gig, the VLAN would be there ready to do it. So there's no VLANing on the main router itself, only if we was pointing it at a different switch, which is a different bit. It's complicated, but in theory it was done really, really easy. So was the routers and it was into offices or just switches? No. Now from the switch in the rack cabinet, so each port will go back to a different room that will go into their own little router, which would have been it would have been a cheap router. So it'd be like a Netgear router would have WAN port one side, 4 internal gigabit ports, and then it'd be using the firewall in there. So it was just kept simple. So in theory, when you looked at the rack cabinet, it looked like it had a broadband connection, switch internally, and one for the phones. That's how easy it was, how we did it. So let me go through these switches here. There were a layer of 2 switches going to the offices with access ports, and ports on the router was trunked. Yeah, in theory, that's right. So what would people's default gateway in the office be? Well, the default gateway would be the normal router. They would have a fixed IP address on their WAN ports. That's for Mike. Just don't understand how people were getting out to the internet through the VLAN. Well, VLAN, because the VLAN port, right, it's complicated, but because you've got 2 ports on the router, one's our internal managed port, which allowed us to see all the VLANs, okay? The other port will be going back from the router, so that'll be on another VLAN going back to the main router. And each port on there had their own VLAN section, but the configuration on the VLAN site will allow that VLAN to be part of the WAN, part of the main port that goes back onto the main router. That's how that worked. So it could see that port only. It couldn't see any other routers or any other offices on the other port, and it will go straight out to the internet over a VLAN. And it's, to be honest, it's probably easy. I mean, if I can find the old config file, you show how the config worked, because VLAN is quite complicated. If you don't know how VLAN works, it can be very complicated in setting it up. Sometimes if you set them up, they don't always work. But in theory, it's hard. I have to draw it out. It's more easy that I try and explain it. Default gateway would be the router. Yeah, because if you've got a WAN port, it's going to have the public internet address. It's going to have the subnet mask. It's going to have DNS settings, and it will have a gateway. The gateway for that would be in our router, our ISP router, because that was on site. When you get a lease line, they install a fiber optic line, comes down into your building, goes up into your cabinet, and it goes into a router they supply. Okay, so on that router, there's no firewall. It's just a plain router. As soon as you plug into it, you're on the internet itself. So long as you've got your own IP addresses and you set that correctly on your PC, you got full internet access straight out. There's no firewall on there. This router just provided routing traffic straight out on the web, because we became a full ISP ourselves for this when we did it. So we had to provide for our own DNSs. We had to provide our own IP scheme, which we applied to the, it's called now, called RIPE. RIPE, is it called RIPE? Where we brought and did our own IP addresses. And then once we got all that set up, because we had to get an account and get these tag numbers that actually we then sent to our ISP to say, tag our router for that. That's where our IP address will be sat on. It was a complicated bit. Documentation this thick explaining it all. So that's how that worked. But which router? The gigabit lease line router is not the VLAN. No, the gigabit router had VLAN ports on it. So each switch we had that had all the broadbands, well, all the offices plugged into, they still had to be on a VLAN going back to the router. So even because we had a problem where we originally configured the router as just straightforward, when they were going through, we were still seeing the other networks, the other routers, which was like, oh, we don't want that, because if someone plugged directly to their router out of their room and just plugged directly to the port, they could scan the whole network, see. So then we had the ISP configuring each port on the 16 ports, their own VLANs. They would match the actual switches we plug into. Then there was complex VLANs configuration per port that will allow it to go through and pass through. So that's how it worked. And then that will allow us to bypass straight out the internet. They can have a fixed IP address on the router using a proper public IP address. They couldn't see anybody else's router, and they couldn't actually see any private network. Especially our admin port, they couldn't see that either, but we could see them. I have to find the config file and I can show you how it worked. So the gateway for the office routers. So the gateway for the office routers would have been given by the ISP. No, we became the ISP. So our router would had a normal fixed IP on it. Okay. So the routers from the customer's room would be pointing at our router as the default gateway, but it would have their own IP address that we would assign them. I think we had 2 blocks. So 2 blocks of 254 IP addresses. We had a very large range. I can't remember the name. They started like 109 point something, and then we had another one that started we had 3 blocks. We had one that started at 62, and we had one start at 109, 60, and then another one at 69 dot something, and something else. I know we applied for about 3. That's what we needed in the end, because some of the customers were actually asking for more than one IP address when they had the servers hosting with us as well. And we had also outside hosting coming into us as well, so we had to provide, some of them wanted 16 IP addresses in one block. Okay, so keeping it really simple, if I go to one of the offices and logged into the PC and do an IP config, if you went into the offices, plugged your PC in it, you'll get the default gateway would be what the routers is. So on their router, on the internal side, I would start their router being the way I configure the router. Okay, let's explain this. The way I would configure their own little router would be a fixed IP address, which would be 109 point something on there. That would be pointed to our own ISP router, our own router itself. Okay, and it will be using our own DNS servers that will actually do the resolving for them. We didn't use an outside one; we used our own. Now, if you plugged a PC into the office, when you log onto it and do an IP config, you would see the router's address is 192.168.1.254. And that's what that router's address would be. Now, when you do an IP config, to the PC default gateway will be that address, 192.168.1.254. Okay, and the DNS will be again 192.168.254. That's what your DNS would be. And then the IP address would be whatever the router will give you internally. So it will start with 192.168.1. Whatever it would be. Because I would start DHCP from 1 to up to 200. I didn't configure any bigger than that because each room would never hold over 200 people in the rooms. So they will always be configured very short itself. So that's how that worked. They had also Wi-Fi on that, so they would have that for their iPhones, PCs, laptops, or iPads and stuff. Yes. So the ISP router that's supplied for us would be tagged. So that's how we tagged it. So because it's easy. I tell you, I've got I've got one of the switches that came back from them, which I use at home, but I use it as a straight switch. If I can find the config file, I'll load it up onto the switch and then maybe do a video showing you how the ports and the tagging works, because it will load the tagging back originally and you can get an idea how it works. Probably a lot more easier trying to explain it by actually showing you it. So I will find the config files. So when I end up in the move from here and I can get that fired up, we'll reload the config back onto it, and then you can have a look how that works. And then each individual office router's default gates will point to your gigabit router. Yes, because what they'll have a public IP address. So we'll start at like 109 something something something, and that the default gateway for that will be our router, which will be something like 109 something something as well. Okay, because what they've done is when we had a block assigned to our router, they will configure it. So each block, because they said you can assign a whole block of IP addresses to one port or one part of the router, or you can break them down into different subnets. So you get like 16, 32, something else. So we used to have them broken down. Okay, so that will then generate it will generate default gateway and a subnet mask, which will be in that little block. It's complicated because I had to learn all this going through, because ISP and all that stuff wasn't my forte, but we didn't want to be wholesaling or buying from a third party. We wanted to wholesale it ourselves because we wanted to literally get rid of the middlemen and become an ISP ourselves. So I had to learn all this with the help of our own bandwidth providers. Helped us through all this. They did some of the programming ourselves because I didn't want to manage the actual ISP router itself, because they manage it, because they wanted to make sure the line stays up. Our lease line was literally 1-to-1 ratio. There was no other. It was dedicated to us. So we had a gigabit bearer on our lease line, so we could go up to a whole gig if we wanted to, gig up, gig down. But we had it configured. So we started out 100 meg to start with. Then after a few months, we decided we needed more bandwidth. We went to 200 meg, and then went to 300 meg, and eventually finished on 500 meg. So we had 500 meg up, 500 meg down, and there's no contending on that. That was literally pure our own bandwidth, because that's how we did a full lease line. The full lease line was costing us round about I think £6,500 per year on the rental side. But we was making 4 times, maybe 5 times that back on the rental of internal broadband services. But your gigabit router can 1-to-1 NAT a public IP to their router. See, I'm not sure on how they had it configured the router wise, because they could remote access the router. They could tell when our router went down. They could tell when the line was off. There was issues. They can remote firmware it. So they managed all that themselves. So I'm not sure how their end setups were. But all I knew was I had blocks of IP addresses that I could assign to any system I wanted that could go out on any of those ports itself. What system do you implement for web filtering and logging? Web filtering and logging we didn't do. We didn't log anybody's internet connection. We didn't filter anybody's internet connection. That's solely down to them. Each router we had in their offices had their own bandwidths, so own firewall. They were cheap, just cheap standard Netgear routers. They were like £30-40 ones that they could just we could install. We didn't want anything cheaper. If customers wanted more speed, and they wanted more than sort of like 50 meg or 100, and they wanted 100 meg in their office, then we will install a Cisco router switch that we had pre-configured for this scenario as well, because they were like really super stable Cisco switches. They're £500 per box with licenses, and it was there. I had a Cisco engineer configured it so that if another customer decided they wanted their own Cisco router, I could buy one, preload the configs directly onto that, and just make small mod changes. Like if it had its own fixed IP address, I could just change that off the fly. I kept everything simple. What do I do? I run my own IT business. So my IT business was supporting customers, implementing new servers, upgrading servers, general desktop configurations, support, remote management. If they wanted a new system installed, they'll come to me and say, I want to do this, can it be done? How much it's going to cost? I will get all the costs together and go out and buy it, purchase it, configure it, install it. That's what I did, and I run my own business. I had my business running for 15 really good years. And on the hosting front, because I started out IT, so I used to work for a company called Systems Group, based in Woking, and that's where I got all my skills and learnt all the ups and downs and thrown in the deep end. So I picked all my skills up, and eventually that came to, after being there for, I've been there for many years, I decided to go it myself. So I started supporting customers. Then as I halfway through my IT, sort of supporting clients and customers, it grew into, because my website started growing, and I wanted to do more stuff with it. I was really reluctant to pay for shared bandwidth, shared websites. So I wanted to run my own website off my own server, and that's how I eventually got into web hosting as well, and eventually became sort of I had a whole rack of servers that were located in City Lifeline in London, data centre in London called City Lifeline. So I had a whole rack with them for quite some time, actually, quite 3 or 4 years. Then I moved from there up into a data centre in Stevenage, and I had just over half a rack, because I started going to virtualization then. So I virtualized down the racks, the servers and stuff I had at City Lifeline, and went into Stevenage. While I was at City Lifeline, I was hosting to Disney in the UK. Disney had their own web servers. I had 3 of their web servers in my racks. They was paying a fortune for that, which they really were doing. We also had 3 servers off-site. So the first year, as soon as they came over to us, they already increased, because I used to give them like over 100 meg connection. So I knew they had top speed. They never used all that, even on their busiest period. They never used it all. So I had them for 6 years. I hosted Disney's online web store for 6 years, and that was through a reseller that got the deal for me, because they did all their web design development. I did all the hosting. Now, what would you do for web configuring for logging? There's lots of software I used in the past for clients' web logging and filtering. I've not really done anything recently with web filtering and logging. In the past, we used to use things like Minesweeper and stuff like that, because we had clients that wanted us to know what information was coming through, people was doing file attachments and all that sort of stuff. And even we had NDs that said, I want to know from an email address if any of my staff are slacking me off. So we used to put keywords in, like his name, and where it's been used, and we used to filter that. And if anybody was sending an email out or having an email come in that had a director's name in, a copy of that would be sent to the director to read, and we use like Minesweeper for it. But current stuff I don't really know much of, because I don't really do stuff like that anymore, because I retired from IT side and started doing a lot of filming, and then I decided, okay, I'll start doing some videos on IT. Still enjoy IT, because a lot of stuff in my house now, I have servers, I have internal web hosting I do here still. So in theory I still do it, but for myself now. So so a lot of stuff I don't really sort of do much anymore. But the last lot was like using Minesweeper for web filtering, email filtering, all that sort of stuff. Some good products on the market. I use a spam filtering system, which is in the States. I rent 2 virtual servers over there, which I send all my mail over. They spam it, check it, virus check it, and then it comes back to my Exchange server here in the house. Are you on PSN? Can I have a party chat with at some stage? No, I don't. I'm not on PSN. I'm on Facebook. If you go onto Cloud123 UK on Facebook, and you'll see my little cloud logo. Like on there, and you can chat to me directly through Facebook on there, because I tend to do a lot of voice chats, messages. You get loads of people I'll chat to and stuff. But yeah, so go on Facebook, locate Cloud. I'm sure it's got at Cloud123 UK, and you'll find my logo straight away. Like me on there, then quickly pop a message up on there, and then when it appears on my phone, I can talk to you. Cool. Right, I've been on here for almost an hour now. I was meant to do a quick update, and obviously conversations and chat and people talk to me has been quite cool. Can you follow my YouTube channel, please? Automotive Century. I don't follow channels because I only use this channel to create videos on. I don't use it to play back videos. I have a personal bit for that. But have a look. So anybody that sort of sends me stuff looks like always interested to see what you guys do when you do videos. When people like me or subscribe to me, I always check out you as well, see if you got videos and look at what you guys do. So yeah, I'm always nosy. Knowing what my viewers are all about and stuff, you know. But anyway, I'm going to call it quits here now because obviously it's late. I don't know what time it is now. I've still got packing to do, so I need to get that done. Got a lot more packing to do tomorrow as well. And I've got to move all my servers here because I still have clients that dial into me over the internet using remote desktop. So I need to get them moved next few days. So I want to get them prepared as well. Can you follow my YouTube channel? Right. So thanks Mike and all the others that have been following me and talking to me. Have a great one, and I'll do some more updates on my move and eventually do the man cave install, all that stuff to come. Mouth's going dry now. And catch up soon. So if you got any questions on IT or things like that you want me to look at, or not quite sure, questions, got some, saying what do I do here, blah blah. Follow me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, but follow me on Facebook because you can chat to me directly there. So if you leave a message, I'll probably do a voice message back and then have a conversation with you and stuff like that. It's great to talk to everybody anyway. So thanks very much, guys. Cheers and see you soon.